created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
This time we are talking about a melody that is also very well known in the voice of a mezzosoprano, even though, as it has happened with other cases, I share with you that maybe in particular this melody is better for a contralto voice. Some mezzos struggle since it is written in a very low register for many mezzos, so contraltos feel much comfortable. However, the complete opera tends to go very often high in the upper register, so that it makes difficult for a contralto to carry out with the complete opera, and that makes the mezzos more adequate for that for the other numbers in the opera. Of course, we are talking about Il Trovatore, and we are talking about the very, 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 very famous aria by Azucena. Azucena, of course, is the Italianization way of saying the name of Manrico's mother. Manrico's mother is Azucena in Spanish, and Azucena, as we will keep pronouncing her, happens to have a very horrible story on her back. There is a very horrible story in her past, and from that very horrible story that we are going to learn, or that we have already learned in detail once at the beginning, because the story is told by Ferrando himself, telling the story of the old gypsy that was burned alive. Same story that will be repeated in this second act by Azucena herself, and it will continue to be mentioned throughout the rest of Il Trovatore. Il Trovatore, for many people, by Maestro Giuseppe Verdi, is looks more, even though we could say the same about the plot of many, the librettos of many operas, because the story is not really believable itself. For many people, this is way too much, so that's what makes Il Trovatore way too much. Many people die there, many horrible things are told there, and Azucena happens to be, I have made a post that you can find in Ko-fi when I called these characters the catalyzers of the story. I was sharing back then, no amneris, there is truly no Aida. No Scarpia, there is truly no Tosca. There is no Azucena, there is really not a Trovatore as we know it by now. So the importance of these roles is very high, provided that they somehow guide and expedite certain situations that need to happen in the opera so that we can have the story as we know it, and that could be the case of Azucena. So I haven't said so far, already 3 minutes, and I haven't told you that, of course, we are talking about Stride la Vampa. Stride la Vampa, which is a melody that many people know, not because it is particularly nice, it is not as Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta voix, Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta voix, comme s'ouvrent les fleurs, au baiser de l'aurora, or a very sticky, well-known melody such as in Carmen, l'amour est un oiseau bohème qui n'a jamais, jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi, prends garde à toi. No, unfortunately, this time we are not talking about that. We're talking about a melody that is also, I was sharing at the beginning, in the low register of a mezzo, more comfortable for a contralto. And also, even if we don't know the words, we feel that this is not, this is a melody that we can grasp, that we can follow, that somebody somehow we tend to like it, somebody we feel that the story behind it is not very nice. So when we hear for the very first time the mezzo, already struggling with the notes, Stride la vampa, giunge la vittima, nero vestita, discinta scalza, grido feroce, di morte levasi, l'eco e ripete, di balza in balza, sinistra splende, suoi volti orribili, notte trafiamma che salsa al cielo, che salsa al cielo. This complete melody that many people know, ta 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 da 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 And as I have shared with you in previous episodes, you notice that even if you don't know the words, as I have provided the example in La Habanera, that even if you don't know the words, the melody stands by itself, same as in the melody for Il Trovatore. Same has happened with Azucena. And so in Stride la Vampa, I will start sharing now with you the story, the very horrible story that are the words of Stride la Vampa. And Stride la Vampa is no other than the story of the mother of Azucena being burned alive. She was believed to be a witch, so she was burned alive. That's what happens to the mother of Azucena. And Stride la Vampa is a story of what happened back then. This is a memory that keeps being obsessive in the mind of Azucena, who, for what we can see, cannot escape, if not a single moment, at least not a single day, without recalling, without those horrible sounds and yelling and the whole thing repeating and repeating and repeating itself in her mind as she sees her mother dying, burned alive in the eyes of the whole people in town. Of course, if you think of this situation, you may agree. Of course, that wouldn't happen. Well, it might happen in some countries, but if you think of that scene in nowadays, try to think of yourself. What would you have engraved in your mind if you were to see someone you love, such as your mother, being burned alive? Of course, this would be a memory that would keep your mind haunted till the last day of your life. Of course, if you think of that, then you can understand why this obsession is in the mind of Azucena. Of course, she wishes her mother hadn't died, but much opposite to what she wants, she witnessed it herself. She saw people, she saw the soldiers carrying her mother to the fire. She saw all the people going mad, happy of seeing the spectacle of seeing someone being burned alive. How would you feel towards humanity once having seen that? Of course, you wouldn't feel part of them any longer, how would you feel about having seen something so unfair happened before your eyes? And as we will see, learn later, because it is not part of Street de la Vampa, but part of the story of that follows, because the scene of Condotta Larinceppi is terrible itself, where she will continue to narrate what happened back then, now strictly only to Manrico, because Street de la Vampa is something that Azucena sings in the middle of her group of gypsies. So she's telling this story that, of course, she has shared many, many times in the past, but that the gypsies keep asking her to repeat it to themselves. So it is not a new story, but they know that when Azucena narrates this story, is like she was out of her mind, like if she had been transported somewhere else, and somebody else took over the body of Azucena to tell this horrible story of her mother being born alive. So, going to the words, Street de la Vampa refers to the horrible noise, to the horrible growth, to the fierce sounds of the fire. That's what Street de la Vampa means. The horrible, fierce, horrible roaring of the flames already waiting for their next victim. And referring to not only to the words, but the vocal part of her Azucena, Maestro Verdi demands the mezzo, or the contralto, given the case, to emphasize the Street de la Vampa. So he's demanding to emphasize Street de la Vampa. Giunge la vittima nero vestita di cinta e scalza. So the emphasis is in Street de, before the ornaments and the trinity, in la vampa giunge la vittima nero vestita. So if you have ever wondered why the melody of what Azucena is actually singing feels like strongly emphasized somewhere, it's because of that. Maestro Verdi has given us the indication, even though if he doesn't say that it is going to be forte or fortissimo, the singer knows by reading the score that he has to emphasize Street de la Vampa giunge la vittima nero vestita di cinta e scalza, grido feroce di morte levasi, l'eco e ripe. So if you notice, not only the construction at the beginning is the same, it is very weird if you think of that. Why would Maestro Verdi write ornaments vampa giunge la vittima while telling a horrible story? And remember that every ornament means something. So the ornaments in this part really mean that Azucena is telling a story but is out of her mind. It's madness, and maybe it is not only the madness that has captured her mind, but the madness of what she's actually describing, because what she is describing is that those fierce, horrible sounds of the flames, already very alive, ready to burn someone, giunge la vittima nero vestita. Giunge la vittima is referring to the fact that her mother, the victim of this story, her mother is being brought to the flames dressed in black. Nero vestita, discinta e scalza. So when she's telling us that the mother of Azucena is being brought to the fire with a black dress and also with bare foot, that's what this part is telling us. Stride la vampa, giunge la vittima, nero vestita, discinta e scalza. So far we know that to the growing sound, the horrible growing sounds of the fire, a woman is being brought dressed in black and with bare foot. And then we learn what the people are doing. And what the people are doing is grido feroce di morte levasi. What Azucena is telling us now is that in forte, grido feroce di morte levasi. Because in grido feroce means those horrible yells. Feroce means or wants to describe the quality of the yells of people who are witnessing how the suspected witch is going to be born alive. So try to keep that in your mind and think of a great number of people also madness, in ecstasies for seeing a witch being born alive. So those are the yells that Azucena is referring to. Grido feroce di morte levasi. Di morte levasi, those horrible yells that are rising as they talk about death. Di morte levasi, l'eco il ripete, di valsa in valsa. So those voices are repeating, that's why it is called l'eco. The echo, l'eco il ripete di balsa in balsa. Those voices are repeating in choir and in choir and in choir that ecstasis and that madness of having the opportunity of seeing a witch being burned alive. Of course, if you keep that image in your mind, this is horrible. You see a group of people going mad, insanely shouting, yelling of happiness that they will see somebody being burned alive. Of course, you can say, oh, people are afraid, and because of being afraid, they are happy that a witch is going to be burned alive. And even if that could be the explanation of this, it does not mean that this is a horrible sin. But Azucena continues, di balsa in balsa, sinistra splende. And in this part, Maestro Verdi has emphasized sinistra splende, sui volti orribili, la tetrafiamma che s'alza. So before we get there, sinistra splende and sui volti orribili, in il viso, a sinister faces that are looking at her. Sinistra splende sui volti orribile la tetrafiamma che s'alza al ciel. Because all that horrible face and those horrible looks as they are looking at the place where the woman will be burned. la tetrafiamma che s'alza al ciel. So they are looking at how the flames are growing up. Que salsa al ciel. Of course, this continuous trill, this continuous mordente that in fact grows, that's what Maestro Verdi is requesting. It's not only que salsa al ciel. It is not ciel, it is ciel. Que salsa al ciel. Because the mezzo has to carry the drama with her voice, and it is not only that you believe is that you believe this is a horrible story, is that you feel scared and frightened of listening to this sound. Que salsa al ciel, and then the music. Stille la vampa, tan 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 tan. So let's continue, because the whole narration of the story, and I will try to continue with it. Remember that we have listened to the horrible sounds of the flames rising up to the sky, and there is this horrible group of people who live in town who run, corre a quel fuoco, qual lieta incendianza, run, and they are hastened, they are in such a rush to meet everybody at the fire, to corre a quel fuoco, lieta incendianza, because they pretty much look, and if the flames are fierce, the faces of the people running to the fire are fierce as well, fierce, lost in their minds. Urli di gioia intorno echeggiano, frenzied with the pleasure of seeing these things happened. Of course, nothing if this story, even if no, it is a made-up story. Of course, this is nothing we can be proud of. I mean, seeing people going mad and happy, running to the flames and yelling, urli di gioia. How can anybody shout in pleasure that somebody is going to be burned alive? But that's what Azucena narrates. Urli di gioia intorno echeggiano, tinta di sgherri, zona s'avanza, sinistra splende, sui volti orribili, la tetrafiamma che s'alza al ciel, che s'alza al ciel. Of course, even though it is pretty much repetitive, because we already have the complete scene, that the fire is being ready, that the flames are fierce, that people are so mad, and that they even in themselves, with that madness, reflect the same tremendous destruction that the flames can themselves do in their turn. And when all this is somehow repeated, and we have a very, in a way, the construction of the aria is there is a repetition, even if the words change a little. Still, the melody continues. Tra la 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 la. La 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 la. That's pretty much the melody of this. But I wanted to refer, because you know that we like doing that, how should this be wrapped? In fact, the way it is wrapped in the first part and in the repetition, it's the same. There must be ascending notes. Not only they are ascending in value. It is not only ascending in value, but also Maestro Verdi is requesting that the peak of the volume is reached when you finish. So it is natural that you listen to a mezzo doing that with the second syllable with much lower volume than the first part, because it is expected to finish subito. All of a sudden, after having narrated this horrible story, the mezzo is expected to finish. But this is somehow weird, or this is not what people in opera expect. People in opera expect that something spectacular happens. And of course, the mezzo, and thanks God it is a mezzo, because if it was a soprano, they would have extended even more. But for a mezzo, so the mezzo needs to decide, and most of the times what they do is that they keep the corona, or the top moment of the high note. They keep that salsa because it doesn't have much of a value, because Maestro Verdi wants it to finish subito. Just like that. But the mezzos, just to give themselves the pleasure of keeping for longer, keeping maybe for 3 or 4 seconds, or as long as they can keep it. And then later they wouldn't have a problem with wrapping up with chan. That's how it is usually wrapped. And I was also planning to share with you that I find that in several areas it is, or the applause comes a little unnatural in the sense of the message that is being conveyed. You're telling the story of a woman being burned alive, and of people completed madness, yelling of happiness that she's being burnt. So after having said that the flames are rising to the sky to burn her alive, of course the mezzo has done a great job, so she deserves the applause. But in terms of the flow of the story, it seems so natural that you are giving applause for telling a horrible story. I don't mean that we shouldn't give the recognition to the mezzo of the contralto if they have sung it well. What I mean is that it feels so natural, and that maybe we should save the applause, because after meeting with Alfredo, who was there, she's going to continue with the Condotta alla Rincepi, which is a tremendous scene, a very tremendous and difficult scene. And maybe once she finishes her story, il figlio mio, lo aveva bruciato. Maybe after having finished telling her story of that, maybe the applause should wait until that part, because otherwise I think that it really doesn't go with what we are listening. Again, to insist, not to say that this aria doesn't deserve an applause, of course it does, but it breaks the flow of the drama if we give the applause now and not until the end of the Condotta alla Rincepi. But those are my thoughts. How often will you hear it in concert? Not very often. Not that it is very difficult in the high notes, because the highest it request is a G, which for a mezzo is completely doable. But since they have been singing continuously in the middle lower register, da ta 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 la 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 la, the voice of the mezzo, if she happens to be a mezzo with not a very well developed center of the voice, it's going to tire her. Azucena will be demanded to sing a high C, a hardly ever requested note for a mezzo. So a mezzo that is comfortable singing a high C and her central C and the lower C is hardly ever found. So truth is that many mezzos get tired or are tired or try to work a way out in this stri de la vampa. Too much continuous middle low register, and it is with power, because if you notice, even if Maestro Verdi hasn't told us to continuously be forte and fortissimo, still it has to be sung with power and with lots of determination. Otherwise, nobody is going to believe that Azucena is telling us such a horrible story. To be sincere, many great interpreters of this aria there are not, because of what I have been repeating throughout the whole episode. Mezzos tend to have a problem with the middle low register, so they don't have enough power in que salsa al ciel, que salsa. So you may notice that the mezzo falls or runs out of power in que salsa al ciel. But if they don't do it with full power, full determination, this aria somehow loses sense, loses its complete purpose, which, for what I have summarized, it's really one of the most horrible content in the story of opera.
You can follow our channel for the latest updates and more content. Opera we love singing, in just one word. Link in the description of the episode.